Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. What's going on, YouTube? Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. What's going on? Instagram, what up, what up? Just waiting to hop on Insight Timer, so just bear with me. And for those of y'all who might be watching this tonight or watching it in the future, peace and blessings to all of y'all. Just give me a couple more seconds. I'll hop on Insight Timer. We'll get started. One, there we go. All right, peace and blessings to Insight Timer. What's going on, y'all? As y'all come in, just say hello, say peace, say aloha, hotep, assalamu alaikum, shalom. Let me know how you feeling. Say what's up. We'll get started shortly. Those of you who've been here before know that I usually wait a little bit. I get started at the 7-minute mark. So peace and blessings to you. Just hang out for a second while we get started. Yeah, but for everybody who's joining me, just want to let y'all know, Ella, what's going on? I'm glad you're here as well. Glad you're here as well. How was your day so far? And for everybody else watching, how was y'all day? Let me know how you feeling. Let me know what's going on. Okay, you in New York? Okay. All right. I hope everything's going good. Hopefully everything's nice and safe. Hopefully you got a chance to at least get some rest. At least get a moment to yourself today. You said it was a long day. Hopefully you had a little bit of time for you. But I'm excited. I'm generally excited. Generally excited, but tonight I'm really excited because we're gonna talk about something that I think is very important to discuss. So we're gonna wait a little bit, see who else joins us tonight, and then we'll get started. I think someone else has just joined us. As you come in, guys, just say hello. Deb, what's going on, Debbie? How was your day so far? And where are you saying hello from? Oh, in Australia. Okay, wow. Yeah, I always find it interesting when we connect with people from all over the world. I was just thinking about how, like, I think it was a year or two ago, I gave a live stream where I was talking about Sufism. And it was somebody from Iran in the live stream. I was like, oh wow, that was cool. Is it day or night over in Australia right now? It must be morning over there, I would assume. Yeah, morning. That's what I figured. Yeah, because you said you're just getting started. Hopefully, you have a really good day. Thursday morning. Okay. Yeah, we're still in Wednesday. It's still Wednesday here. It's an interesting conversation. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be an interesting one. I'm really excited about this conversation with you guys. Yeah, we still in the past. Yeah, we are still in the past. We are still in the past. That is hilarious. But yep, we're all moving forward to the future. We're all moving forward to the future. Jay, what's going on? Peace and blessings. Thank you for joining us. Glad that you're here. Peace and blessings. Yvette, how are you? Glad you're here from Texas. Okay. Texas is Texas the show me state, or is that the star state? Lone Star State? Or am I just wrong on both? Lone Star, okay. Lone Star. As many westerns as I've seen, you think I would know that. But thank you for joining us. I'm glad you're here. Really glad you're here. We're gonna get started in a couple of more minutes. Just waiting for a few more people to pile in, just to see who wants to join us tonight. Who wants to come hang out? Appreciate everybody who's here. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Oh, this week, this past Sunday, I did something I've been planning to do for a long time. I I did a class where I incorporated hip hop music and meditation and mindfulness. That was fun. That was fun. I did it with a friend of favorite diva. All is well, favorite diva. Thank you for stopping by. I'm glad to see you. Salute my brother. Peace. Yes, as I was saying, yeah. Sunday I did a class that I gave, and we incorporated hip hop and mindfulness. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad I did it. Real glad I did it. I want to try to do something like that here, but I got to figure out how to do it because writing is a part of it. Writing is a part of it, and sharing is a part of it. So I want to. I don't know. I wish it was some kind of way where we could do it like together, like talk to each other. But I guess they haven't figured out that technology for Insight Timer yet. But when they do, I want to definitely incorporate something like that with you guys. I think that'd be real fun. I think that'd be real fun. Everybody writing rhymes and performing. That'd be fun. Y'all have a blast. We'll have a blast. Yeah, it was fun. It was real fun. I liked it a lot. It's something I've been thinking about doing for years. And then recently I said, you know what? Let me just do it. Let me just offer it for free. I did it for free. I just put it up there and ended up doing it. Some people showed up. We had a good time. It was interesting. It was on my mind for a long time, and I'm glad that I pushed it into making it happen. But we're at the 7 minute mark. Let's get started. Let's begin. What, where, how, or when will all be explained like instructions to a game. See, I'm not insane. In fact, I'm kind of rational. But I'm asking you, who was more dramatical, this one or that one, the white one or the black one? Pick the punk, and I'll jump up to attack one. KRS One is just the guy to lead a crew. Right up to your face and dish you. Remember that? The old KRS One song? My Philosophy, one of KRS One's best songs. I love that song. But anyhow, yeah. So tonight, I wanted to discuss the topic of God and reality. Why did I want to discuss this? Because I think it really occurred to me that a lot of what we believe, right, influences our lives, and a lot of our beliefs, whether we hold these beliefs consciously or unconsciously, influence our destiny. They influence the outcome of our decisions, our relationships, everything that we believe. Whether we are aware that we believe it or not, influences how we behave and it influences what happens to us and how we lead our lives, right? But the most profound belief that we hold on to, the most pervasive belief that we hold on to and that we have is our belief in God. What we believe about God, what we think about God, that influences us. And quite often, we're not even really aware of it because so many of us are raised kind of in a quasi religious environment where there's a God concept that's put into our minds and into our lives, and then we kind of regulate God and spirituality and religion somewhere over there. So your beliefs about God are influencing you, even though you may not even be thinking about it on a day-to-day basis. And that's kind of what I wanted to discuss with you guys. Um, the most powerful beliefs that we hold, right, are not even the beliefs that we're conscious of and aware of. It's the beliefs that get embedded into our unconscious mind. Typically, these ideas get embedded in our unconscious mind through being introduced to these concepts at an early age. Bria, what's up? Peace and blessings. We get introduced to these ideas at a very early age. So if you're a child and someone's taking you to church, or you're a child and someone's discussing God with you, they're putting these ideas into your mind when you're in a state where your mind is totally open. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of the brain that kind of filters out things that we don't believe and things that seem illogical, that hasn't even fully developed. That's why children are very erratic. They're very erratic. They're very emotional. Earlier today, my kids was just whining and driving me crazy because they would be upset and their emotions are all over the place. And I love my baby boys, but I just realized that they're still developing and growing. The logical, rational part of the brain is not there, so they act kind of their emotions are all over the place. So people introduce these ideas to you at a young age, and you grow up, and these ideas kind of are stuck there. Whether you're thinking of them consciously or not, they're stuck there. Also, repetition. If you go to church every Sunday, these ideas and these concepts get embedded in your mind. If you watch TV, a lot of the things that we believe and see come from our television shows. So we're being entertained, but ideas are being introduced into our unconscious mind. Even for individuals who are not religious, our concept of God comes from what's in our environment, and we have a concept of God that's very different from other ideas about God in other parts of the world. But your beliefs about God, whatever they are embedded into your unconscious mind. And that's very important that we note that, because the unconscious mind is so powerful. All of your behavior, all of it is shaped and formed by the unconscious mind. All of it. There's very little that we do, especially those of us who don't practice mindfulness. There's very little that we do that's not being directed by the unconscious. We've been trained and programmed from the time we were born to have certain responses to certain stimulus. And so all of our behavior is something that we've been programmed to do since we were children. That's the working of the unconscious mind. And there's a cool book. I started rereading this book again. It's called The Biology of Belief. The Biology of Belief by Bruce H. Lipton. And Bruce H. Lipton says something very interesting in the book, talking about the unconscious mind or the subconscious. He says, when it comes to sheer neurological processing, the subconscious mind is millions of times more powerful than the conscious mind. Millions of times. If the desires of the conscious mind conflict with the programs of the subconscious mind, which mind do you think will win out? Yeah, Bria, that's a major part of kind of what I'm discussing, because people may not directly believe in God, but some of us have like a God concept. Yeah, the biology of belief. Yep, love that book. Everybody is operating off of a God concept. Even if you don't believe that there is a God, there's still a God concept in your mind that could be affecting your behavior and affecting how you interact with others, affect how you carry yourself, things of that nature. Blossom, how are you? So, what I'm really talking about here is how our beliefs about God can shape our lives. And I wanted to give a couple of examples of how our beliefs about God shape our lives in big ways that affect entire countries, entire nations, and affect the entire world. And I was thinking specifically about Africa. Um, and Africa, large portions of Africa have been colonized, have been taken over, and are being ruled by outside forces, outside powers, and even countries where, say for instance, French colonists and Belgian colonists, they may not still be physically in the country, ruling the country, but there's still what they call economic colonization, where Africa still pays a colonization tax to a lot of European countries. How did that happen? In a country like Africa, where you got so many people who could just say, you know what, we're not doing this. We're going to fight back. I'm not paying you anything. Why would we pay you? Why would we pay you money for colonizing us? That's essentially what colonial tax is. Colonial tax is, you're going to pay us a tax because we colonized you and you benefited from us taking over your country and taking your resources. So it's silly to pay that tax, right? How did they pull that off? How did Europe pull that off in places in Africa where there's is way more numbers of people, way more groups of people? How did Europe do that when Europeans are a global minority? Well, they did it because when the colonists first came to Africa, the first thing they did after they introduced themselves in is they replaced the image of God. A lot of these African countries, African nations, African religions, they replaced the black image of God with a white image of Christ. And by replacing the black image of God, they did use force, but that was only initially. That was only initially. You can't be a world minority and use force forever. Eventually, you're gonna run out of people. You're gonna run out of manpower. You're gonna run out of guns. So the most powerful force you can use is psychological warfare, and they engage in psychological warfare simply by changing the image of God. Everywhere you see the colonists have gone in Africa, India, Japan, China, the first thing they did was uproot the innate, natural, national images of God and put in white colonial images of God. And by putting in the white images of God, that made it so that individuals wouldn't fight back. Yeah, exactly. A lot of us don't think about it. See what I'm saying? Your ideas of God, your concept of God influences your behavior. Your ideas of God influence your behavior. So they had this image of God, this idea of God as, the white Jesus Christ, blonde hair, blue eyes. He looks like the colonizer. So you're never going to win in a fight against the colonizer. Even if you fight back, you're going to lose because in your unconscious mind, there's a white deity that looks just like the colonists. Their concept of God influences the outcome of their struggle. Right? Now, Africa has been exploited for centuries. There's been slavery. There's been, internal violence, external violence, people taking the resources, Africa paying economic taxes, right? All because of this image of God, this Catholic or Christian image of God, right? But there were some Africans who did not replace their image of God. There were some individuals who there were attempts to colonize them, but they fought back and maintained the black image of God, and that's what kept them safe. Now you can look at there's a guy named Toussaint Louverture. Toussaint Louverture is a Haitian revolutionary. He lived during a time of slavery. Me and my son actually read a book about him, a kid's book about it. It was a pretty good book. And I had my son write a book report about it. In Haiti, they had a thriving slave trade. The colonists came in, took over the island. They were ruling peacefully down there, right? And many of the individuals down there had been converted by force to Christianity. However, there were a lot of individuals who were still worshiping the old African gods in secret. Oh, thank you, Mama B. I appreciate that. So a lot of these older these Africans are worshiping the older African gods. And there's one man in particular, Toussaint Louverture, who when we were reading the book with my son, there was a part that was talking about how Toussaint Louverture and another man who he fought and led the revolution with would go out into the woods at night and they would worship a god called Ogun. Who's Ogun? Well, there's a spiritual system called Yoruba after the Yoruba people. It's also called Ifa. And Ogun is the Orisha of war and of iron, right? So Ogun looked just like Toussaint Louverture. He was a black African. He was depicted as a black African male with dark skin. And so they went into the woods and they would pray to Ogun and say, Ogun, give us the power, give us the force to fight back. And because they were praying to a deity that looked like them, then their deity would look out for them. Their deity would say, hey, you know what? I'm going to use my force and my power and give you the inspiration and pull the energy and the power out of you so you can fight back. And Haiti was a successful slave revolt. The Haitians revolted against the French and actually won. One of the very few slave revolts that was actually completely successful. And it was the first slave colony that was actually independent. They were totally independent. How many different religions have different images of God? Yeah, they all have a different image of God. They all have different images of God. And that's important because if you have an image of God that's a reflection of you, that brings the power out of you. It's like magic. There's a rapper named Cambada who said, I cast power into this. He said, I cast power into the sigil the sign holds. In other words, he's casting his mental power onto this image and the power comes back to him and pulls the power out of him. That's what we do with our God image. Allah is a Muslim? Or Allah, do you mean? But anyhow, yeah, like I was saying, there's also a story about how Toussaint Louverture went out into the forest one night and he made a deal with an African god called Papa Bones. Papa Bones, as the name implies, was a death god. And he made a deal with Papa Bones and said, if you give me victory, I'll give you whatever you want. He made a deal with this black African death god and said, give me the power to overthrow the French. In the African spirituality, they teach that death is not something to be afraid of, that death actually opens up the doors in your mind. They say once you know death, you know all. So because he had a different concept of God, a different image of God, an image of God that reminded him of him, an image of God that was terrifying to his enemies, but was not terrifying to him. That was just a part of life to him. The African concept of death is very different from the Western concept of death. The African, they're not afraid to die. They're not afraid of death. Death is just a part of life. But their enemies were afraid of death. So because they were worshiping a God that looked like them, and it was a concept of God that their enemies were terrified of, that gave them the strength and the power within themselves to overthrow the French and get those colonists out of there. Ethiopia. Ethiopia is another place in Africa that was never colonized. Ethiopia was never colonized. Now, we could talk about the economic state of Ethiopia. We could talk about the political complexities of Ethiopia. That's fine. But Ethiopia was never colonized. Why? There's a brother named Reverend Phil Valentine. Phil Valentine, well, that name Phil Valentine is confusing because there's one conservative shock jock who died from COVID. His name was Phil Valentine, but who I'm talking about was a black mystic from here in America. And Phil Valentine was talking about how he was talking about how when the Christian, okay, Bria, well, you have a good night. When the Christians first came to Africa, they came to Ethiopia to bring Christianity. They were surprised to find that in Ethiopia there was already an elaborate Christianity already there waiting, and the Ethiopians were worshiping an image of God that looked like them. If you look at the paintings of Ethiopian Christians, you'll see images that look like Ethiopians. They have brown skin, they have the same noses, the same facial structure as the Ethiopians. So their image of Christ looks like them. Their image of the angels look like them. Their image of the saints look like them. So when you have an image of God, the concept of God that looks like you, it brings the God out of you. It taps into the God within you so you can bring God out. When you worship the God of your colonizer, or you have a concept of God that doesn't benefit you, then what happens is that it weakens you and that makes you more powerful. It doesn't make you more powerful. And that's the whole point of the God concept. The point of the God concept is technology. Sadhguru said it best. He said it's a form of technology. And this is a secret. A lot of people don't know. When you meditate, using the word God makes the meditation more powerful. Now, I'm not saying God is real. I'm not saying you believe in God or not. We're not here to debate that. But just saying God and introducing the concept of God into your meditation makes the meditation more powerful. It does something to the mind. It activates something in the mind. Now, if and I was reading an article that was giving an example that when people who suffer from anxiety, when they say, I am calm, I am calm, I am calm, okay. When they say, I am love, I am love, I am love, okay. But when they say God is love, introducing that concept into the meditation makes the meditation way more profound. It makes it way more profound. So the goal is to introduce this God concept that's going to benefit you and bring it directly into you. Right? That's the whole point. That's the whole point of the God concept, to bring out the God in you, to bring out the best in you. There's no point in believing in God if God don't have no direct effect on you. I was exhilarated by the new realization that I could change the character of my life by changing my beliefs. Beautiful. Bruce Lipton. Beautiful. There's no point in having any kind of God concept if your concept of God is not directly affecting you and directly intervening and intersecting reality on your behalf. There's no point to it. And that's one of the things that's very, very important, because our beliefs about God shape our reality. If you believe that God is in heaven, or you believe that God is all forgiving, you believe that God is willing to bless you if you're submissive. These are concepts that many of us have about God. How do they benefit you, or how could they hurt you? The idea that God is in heaven makes God not a part of your life. God is way out there somewhere. What's the point of having your God way out there somewhere? You got the force of reality, the force of nature, the force of the entire cosmos, the same power that ignites the sun and sustains the sun. That could be at your beck and call, but instead you put it way over there where you can't touch it. You can't see it. You can't interface with it. So what ends up happening is the fact that you got a useless God over there somewhere because your beliefs have told you God's over there in heaven. And you don't know where heaven is. You don't know what that means. You think there's some special dimension somewhere called heaven. I believe heaven is here. The Bible talks about how there's 12 gates in heaven, and your brain got your skull got 12 cranial nerves. That's heaven to me. Heaven is here. So if heaven is here and God is in heaven, this is my God here. Not saying that my brain is my God, but God is located within me, the consciousness within me. In Africa and Yoruba, they believe that God, there's a special God, or Orisha called the Ori. Ori means head. So they believe that here in your head, there's a God right here. And there's a ritual they have called an Ibori, where you call out that God, you pacify that God, you soothe that God, you energize that God. Comment on healing? Sure, absolutely. I definitely want to go into that. Definitely want to go into that. And also there's scientific studies that demonstrate clearly that a lot of individuals can be healed by faith. You believe God is way up there, it can't help you. But there's a lot of tests that have been done that show individuals that believe they can be healed from diseases healed from diseases. Now, individuals, you can have an individual who's taking medication, and we'll talk about this aspect first. There's an individual who's taking medication, there's an individual who takes the placebo. The placebo effect is very interesting because you can actually heal yourself just by believing you're taking medication. Whether the medication is real or not doesn't matter. It's something here in the mind that's actually healing the body. So somebody can give you a pill and say, "Here, this pill is gonna, help control your blood sugar, or this pill is gonna help you heal your heart." You take a placebo pill that's not just a sugar pill or a water tablet, and next thing you know, you're healing. Exactly, Kate. The placebo proves the power of the mind. It's proven the power of the Ori, the God right here, right in the gates of heaven, right in the 12 cranial nerves, the 12 gates of heaven, right here. So just the idea, right, that God can heal you is enough to tap into the power in your own mind to heal this body. That's why this is called the temple. This is the temple of God. And I always had this theory that I was piecing together years ago, and I kind of got distracted because my mind is always all over the place. If you look at the Temple of Solomon in the Bible, was kind of designed to be like the human, the human body. But I'll break that down another time. I'll get some more evidence to break that down and prove that. But yeah, and Masonic in the Masonic orders, they teach that your body is the Temple of Solomon. You are the Temple of Solomon. So the temple that Solomon built for God so that they could go there to interface with God, that's your very own body. And just by believing you can heal, you can heal. You can heal. That old saying, physician heal thyself. But if you believe God's way up there somewhere or nowhere to be found, then it's difficult to tap into that energy. God has attacked technology to tap into that energy. It makes it easier to tap into that energy for whatever reason. When we say I'm gonna heal myself using my mind, that's hard. But if you say God's gonna do it, for some odd reason, when we externalize it, that makes it so that we could bring the power back within ourselves. I'm not sure why, but yeah, we bring the power back into ourselves. That's the power of the mind, and that's the power of your God concept. You ever notice how a lot of times you have the ability to bend reality? We could bend reality to our will, but when I say, yeah, I'm gonna do this myself, typically it don't work. But when I pray, I'm like, God, please do this. All of a sudden, everything cracks open and everything falls into place perfectly. I'm casting power out and it's coming right back in me through this vessel, this entity, this technology that we call God. And we call it God, but you know, it's something else. Because even our concepts of God are extremely limited. And then we're talking about an infinite force in the universe. For us to call it anything, we're limiting it. And when you call it God, you're limiting it based upon your own personal self-concept. Your idea about God is really just your idea about you. And we have this idea that God is in heaven. We have this idea that God is all forgiving. You ever notice that individuals who believe that God is all forgiving, that God forgives all sins, you ever notice they're the worst people? You ever notice how a lot of times some of the worst people you ever met believe that Jesus Christ forgives all sins? They believe he forgives all sins, so that affects their behavior. If you have a free pass to do whatever you want because your God forgives you, you can do whatever you want. A lot of people take advantage of that God concept. If you believe that God is not going to enact justice, you're going to act out like anybody in any situation. There's been all kinds of scientific tests done and psychological tests done that prove that if you put a human being in a position where they have authority and you tell them they can do whatever they want, 9 times out of 10, people are going to do wicked things. And the same thing happens with individuals when you tell somebody your God gonna forgive you no matter what you do. People push the envelope. So their God concept is affecting their behavior. Whereas if you believe that God is a God of justice and that you have to be a righteous person in order to please God, you'll check yourself before somebody else has to. That God concept is affecting your behavior. What do you believe about God? You believe God forgives everything? How many times have you, even me when I was a Christian, I used to push the envelope. God gonna forgive me. God will forgive me. I mean, I never did nothing too crazy, but being young and you think God is all forgiving, you think you could push the envelope. There's no sense of urgency. And what happens to what happens to the human psyche when there's no sense that, I have to live in the present moment and get this done? There's no sense of urgency. What happens to human beings who have no sense of urgency? They become deceptive, they become indolent, they become vicious, violent, aggressive. But a human being with a sense of urgency, a sense that I could push it to the limit, I could push it too far. Just like us when we're kids. When you were a young kid and you were adolescent, I remember me and my boys, and I told y'all guys this before. Me and my boys, we used to be on the highway. My boy Water, he would be driving the car, going like 100 miles an hour. Me and my boy Ant would be hanging out the windows, just laughing and screaming, listening to music, just getting amped up, literally hanging, physically hanging out the window, going 100 miles an hour. Because I feel like God is all forgiving. I got all the time in the world. I'm not going to die. That's what I believed. So therefore, because I believed that, that made me push the behavior. And then you lose friends. Lost a friend of mine I went to high school with in a car accident. That checked my behavior. I realized I could lose this life. I could lose this body. I can get severely injured. That'll slow you down and affect your behavior a little bit differently. Right? You never understood the concept of being all forgiving. I don't understand it either, because you consider a lot of the things that have happened from the Catholic Church, and we ain't gonna go too much into all of those details. But yeah, a lot of individuals in the Catholic Church who have done some pretty bad things believe that God is all forgiving, from praying over the missiles that were going to be dropped by the Nazis in World War II to other things. We ain't got to get into all that. But you get my point. And also, we believe in an idea of God. We think that God is going to bless us for being submissive. If we are submissive, God will bless us. That's why in the past, there were a lot of revolutions. There were a lot of instances where people would overreach their power and the citizenry would stand up and say, we're not going to allow this. We don't do that no more. Why? Because we think that if we're submissive, God will bless us. We believe the meek shall inherit the earth. We don't say nothing, we don't fight back, then God is going to be more. God is going to attack those who are dominating over us and spare us and show us kindness. We will inherit the earth because of our meekness. And that's really just a God concept that allows us permission to not fight and to be afraid and to be cowards. Whereas if you believe that God is right here within me, and not only in me, but within you, that means I'm going to stand up for you. I'm not going to let nobody hurt my divinity. I'm not going to let nobody hurt me because God's here in me. I live God, walk God, speak God, talk God, eat God. Right? In all things. There's a Hindu text that I read years ago, and it was talking about, it was long. And it was a hymn to a Hindu god, an ancient Hindu god that I didn't worship that god no more. But I remember it was a part that I was reading. It was talking about he would look at the sun and he would go through his morning ritual and light the fire, and it was really really long. And then he kept saying, "And there I see Vishnu, and there I see Vishnu, and there I see." It wasn't Vishnu; it was a different god. And I'm reading. I'm like, what is he talking about? It's long and boring, but I was determined to read it and figure it out. And then I realized that what he was basically saying was he sees God in everything. Dari, thank you. I appreciate that. What he was really trying to say, the poet who wrote that hymn, he was trying to say that he sees God in everything. The person who sees God and everything lives very differently from an individual who sees God as up there somewhere. God is a universal power, universal soul. God is in all things. God is the creator and the protector of all things. You act differently than somebody who sees God as just up there. If God is up there, that means I can sneak around down here and do what I want. That's the scary part. I met a lot of religious liars and thieves and maniacs in my time. I've seen a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people with that idea of God. They see God as their parents, right? Didn't Sigmund Freud say that? We see our concept of God is based upon our concept of our fathers. So, like, just like your father might be asleep in his room, so you can sneak out the house and go to a party next door, and sneak back in, and he won't know. That's how people treat God. We treat God like you treat your dad. You can lie to your dad. You can look your dad right in the face and be like, "No, I was upstairs asleep. Dad, I ain't going nowhere." Yes, indeed. So that's how we treat God. We treat God like our fathers. Our fathers are limited and imperfect and fallible and sometimes brutal. So we see God the same way. God is like our dads. When your dad come home from work, he uptight, he's stressed out, he don't want to be bothered. So that's how we see God. We don't want to bother God and get mad. We won't get punished. Jesus and other masters came, and an interesting thing about it is that they didn't come necessarily to teach you about a God concept that was distant. That's the interesting thing. They came to cut the distance between man and God and tell you that God is within. Jesus Christ said the kingdom of heaven is within. Jesus Christ said the kingdom of heaven is within you. He quoted from the Old Testament where he said, "Is it not written that ye are gods?" Even in the Quran, it's written that when Allah created Adam from a clot of dust, he made man, and he told all the angels of heaven to bow down to man. And I don't speak Arabic, but I know individuals who speak it who know a little more than me. And it says that they use the word Khalifa meaning successor, somebody who is put in a position of power after the true ruler takes a step back. So this idea of God that the masters came to educate us about is not an idea of God somewhere way over there. No, the idea of God they were trying to educate you about is the divinity in you that you got to tap into. That's what it's all about. In ancient Egypt, they taught the same thing. In ancient Kemet, they taught the exact same thing. If you read the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, there's actually certain parts of the journey of the soul through the afterlife, and you have to use certain spells to get past certain things, right? And there's one spell I was reading. It was you had to actually become the god Haru, who the Greeks call Horus. Horus is the son of Osiris and Isis. In certain parts of the underworld, you couldn't get through it at all unless you became a god. So you had to take on the persona and the power of the god Heru or Horus. You had to become him. You had to say, "I am Horus. I use this spell. I am Horus. I've become Horus. Now I can travel down here to go see my father." Who's his father? Asar, or who the Greeks call Osiris. I got to go see him so I can get resurrected and go back to life. So they were teaching for a very long time that you had to elevate yourself and become divine. That's the whole point of real spirituality. The point of religion is to be submissive and get along and pay tithes and pay taxes. The whole point of religion really is business. The state needs his money. They say there's a separation between church and state, but if you see what the Catholic Church has done in Italy, they got their own city over there. Vatican City, they got their own city. So ain't no separation between church and state. You just don't pay taxes. That's all. You got your own city, but the connection between the Catholic Church and politics is heavy. They got a lot of political power. So how can you have a separation between church and state? You got church officials sitting down having dinner with political officials, and they coming up with plans. You got even over here in America, you got evangelicals who have joined the evangelicals who joined certain parts of the government, and they want to change the law to match their religion. You gotta get somebody to pay these taxes. You gotta get somebody to pay this money. That's what religion is for. Religion is so you can generate money. So you can have your own independent state. There's no separation between church and state. The church is a state of its own. Somebody got to pay the taxes in this state. That's what tithes are. We need our own independent state so we can follow our own rules and have our own government. The church is its own government. The Catholic Church is its own government. Somebody got to pay these taxes. How can we get them to pay these taxes? I know. Give me some tithes. So that's the separation between church and state. The church is its own state. Or in some places, the church is the state. That's the point of religion. The point of spirituality is so you can meet God. Also, you can develop and become divine, or not become divine because you are divine, but you need to understand it. And there's stages to understanding it. You can say I'm divine one day, and then say it the following day, and it just means something different because you understand it on a deeper level. That's the point of spirituality. So you can become Horus or Haru and meet your father, the god Asar, and be resurrected spiritually, come back from the dead. That's the point. Yeah, exactly. You never hear anybody saying I meditate so I can steal tomorrow. That makes no sense. It makes no sense. When as you become more self-aware, as you become more self-aware, you actually become more moral as well because you're tapping into that God force. This thing that we call God, which is way more infinite than any word we could slap on it. But we called it God. You tap into that energy, you slowly but surely start to become more moral because you become more sensitive. It actually develops parts of your brain. It develops the prefrontal cortex. You become more rational, more logical, and actually you develop what they call mirror neurons. Now, a mirror neuron is a neuron, a part of your brain where if you see somebody else get hurt, you'll almost feel it. Like for instance, when somebody gets cut and you jump back, you're like you're like that. When you see somebody else get hurt, you're like ugh, because you have mirror neurons. So you almost feel their pain. Empathy, yeah, but it's empathy on an even higher level than that. And that's what makes you more moral is the fact that you actually feel physical discomfort when you see other people get hurt. That's the power of tapping into that God force. Like me, for some odd reason, there's people who I know who I'm cool with. They get a weird thing. They got a weird thing with posting videos of people getting hurt on Instagram or on Facebook. And so I'll be, browsing, looking at social media, and then I'll see a video of somebody like riding a bike down a ramp and the bike will flip and they just land on their head. And I'm like, I can't even watch those. I can't even see those. I can't even see those videos. It's too brutal. I feel that person's pain. But anyhow, going back to what we were saying, in order to really tap into and understand the power of your God concept, you got to start with asking yourself who you want to be. By looking within yourself and understanding your own power and evolving, you get a deeper understanding of God, and you'll develop a God concept that can empower you. But you have to be willing to start from scratch, which is scary. I remember when I was young and I began my spiritual journey, I found a book called The Religions of Man, and it was by Houston Smith, and it was breaking down the world religions. And I remember reading it, and it made me question my religion. And I had a moment where I'm standing in my bedroom at the foot of my bed, holding a book in my hand, questioning my religion. My heart is beating real hard. I'm nervous. I'm like on the verge of a panic attack. And then I had to take a deep breath and calm myself down and realize, okay, if I gotta put that aside, put religion aside to get a deeper understanding of God, then so be it. But I had to that was scary. It was a scary moment. You know what I mean? I had been raised religious my whole life. And even to this day, you guys see when I give these live streams, there's a lot of quotation of the Bible. I quote the Bible a lot. So that goes to show you the full extent to which that indoctrination, that upbringing is still a part of my neural network. I just see it differently now. But it takes a lot to be in that moment and say to yourself, I got to put this aside and go deeper. My God, or to say, you know what, let me put my God concept totally away and start from scratch so I can discover God. Because we've been given a God concept, but I didn't even know that other people around the world see God as something totally different. They got a whole different ways of seeing God. Like we see God as some guy in the clouds. You know what I mean? like controlling everything, like a obsessive compulsive maniac. And then other people see God in a totally different way, which I was not even aware of it. I thought everybody saw God as the same. But even if you read the Bible, read the Old Testament of the Bible and see how they saw God. They talk about God walking through the garden in the cool of the evening. They saw God anthropomorphically. It's interesting. You feel lighter? Yeah, it definitely changes how you feel. It opens up all kinds of interesting doors. And I think that's very, very important because you start to really understand your potential. Once you get rid of those barriers, you start to see your potential. Hence the whole point of this conversation. Your God concept, your idea of God controls your destiny. And you feel lighter because you feel like you have more potential. You feel like you have more options and you feel like you have more power because you put aside your old God concept, which was religious, and now you got something else. Exactly. Ella, good point. It's no longer fear based. It's no longer fear based. It's now based upon a real, true, genuine love, whether it be love for yourself, love for others, or love for God. Now it's a whole different relationship. So that's what I want you guys to do. Because I'm gonna get ready to wrap up because I got an early day tomorrow. I got to drop the boys off at school. But I'm saying I want you to do. I want you to sit tonight or tomorrow when you get an opportunity. And I want you to think about what's your God concept and how does that God concept influence how you behave. And I could have talked a little bit more and went a little bit more in depth. Um, yeah, but I'm running out of time because I gotta cut it now, unfortunately. But yeah, this is a cool conversation. I definitely enjoy. I always enjoy coming here and seeing you guys and chatting with you guys and chopping it up with y'all. I'm gonna be back here next week, next Wednesday night, 11/11. Tell a friend, tell a friend, bring a guest. Let's um let's all come together around this campfire and excite each other, ignite each other. I did mention that, um well, first of all, let me just apologize because last week I was supposed to be here. I was sick. Kate, you're welcome. Last week I was super sick for the first time in a long time. So I was incapacitated. Had to cancel at the last minute because I needed to get rest. Um, and not only was I sick, everybody was sick. My mama was sick, my kids were sick. So, and guess whose job it is to take care of everybody else? I didn't get no time at all to rest. I'm running around, running errands for my mom, because my mom, is not in good health and she was sick. So I had to take care of that, had to take care of my seeds because they want daddy to chase them around the house and play. They ain't going for it. My sons don't want to hear I'm sick. They don't want to hear nothing. Carolina, yes, actually, we'll be here again next week. Definitely, we'll be here again next week. But yeah, I was doing a series called the Five Beyonds. I said I want to develop something else like that for y'all, so I'm working on something else like that for you guys, so we could do like a series and really go kind of in depth. And that's what's coming up. So I'm gonna see you guys again next week. Thank you so much for your time. Peace and blessings. And I will see y'all. Make sure you stay safe. Make sure you stay well. And like I said, understand God is here. Once your God is here, that helps you tap into your power. All right. Peace and blessings.